We're continuing with our reaction, our assessment, our delving into the ongoing fuel protests. Let's get some sectoral reaction, and on that we're joined in studio by the Deputy Vice President of the Irish Road Haulage Association, Eugene Drennan, who has replaced Timmy Dooley, so the seat should still be warm. And on the line we have the Clare IFA Chair, Stephen Walsh as well. And you're both very welcome to the programme. And I'll start with yourself, Eugene, because we had plenty of talk in the previous section about official, legitimate representatives bodies meeting the government and all the associated strands connected to that. You were part of the IRHA delegation that met with the government yesterday. What came of that? Anything productive?
Well, I'd like to clarify one or two things first. I think on your programme yesterday it's been reported to me that people kind of alluded to that we had some sort of a special deal and we could buy fuel differently and, got some bit of refunds off it. That is not true. It's all legitimate what we do. It's recorded. Any rebates, any help we've got, it's available to everybody. We negotiate on behalf of our members, but for instance, the coach people have benefited greatly.
Yes, the diesel rebate isn't just for hauliers.
No, it's for, there's a regulation to it, and you have to meet some of the regulations to get the money, because in that we have a rebate scheme now for about 12 years, and at one stage we had only 50% of hauliers taking it up because there was conditions, there was regulations, they had to join up.
Okay, I accept that. Yes. And just because time is limited, I just want to get back to talks. Did anything productive come? Because it's the government has said they'll continue to engage with you guys. Some people might look at that and say, well, that sounds a bit like a holding pattern. And what about the criticism coming from some of the protesters that the groups like your own and the IFA don't represent everybody, and that's why they feel their voices aren't being heard, and that's part of the reason that they feel they've been left with little option but to carry out these protests?
Well, from my own perspective, I see the reason for protest, and it was to be a rolling protest, and the mass of people were fully behind it because of the costs here. But it's now gone to full blockage, and it's been kind of hijacked by other people, and we've a teleporter blocking the road here to go to Shannon now this morning. So that's gone far. I
passed it this morning. Yeah,
that's gone far from being a protest to a blockage and hurting people. And I've been coming in here to you for 4 years complaining about tax on tax on tax and the layers of taxation on fuel and where we were going. Very few voices supported me. Different people here in Clare know what I talk about, and you always get a reaction if I'm on. But say for the mass of this protest group, they never supported what we were at. They never delved into, because they're working away. Now people do work, and if they have a small number of trucks and that, the work is the main focus.
I get what you're saying. Is this maybe the straw that broke the camel's back, though? Yes. Previously yes. they were as unhappy as you were about the situation, but this is the moment that just compelled them to push them over the edge.
Well, as I said the last time here, we threatened protest last November again in the spring, and if you recall our last interview, we stalled because Minister O'Brien rang us from Brazil to the Patrick Day celebrations that he would bring some fundamental to the table. And I said at that interview as well that we'd forced them into a bit of activity because they did dither. They were too slow to react. But for most people around the world, they were second guessing Trump. It's a war situation is the first thing. It's a very, very different, rather than a weather occurrence or a virus. And then it was a war situation in the supply line of fuel. And because we were so fast to react, because I had come through 1977 in business, it was just horrific, and we're back at the same situation, and we needed immediacy of action, and we needed fast, and we needed to deal with the here and now, not what if or where Trump was. Okay. So that was a bit slow. Okay,
I want to bring Stephen Walsh in from the IFA. Stephen, farmers obviously, as we well know, including from this show, heavily impacted by the rising fuel costs, particularly agri-diesel. What's your take on the protests? We're into day 3 now, and we'll get to the Defence Forces being called in. Do you have empathy with those who are carrying them out? Do you support them? We know the organisations haven't publicly backed these protests. Do you think they have gone too far?
I suppose, look, it's kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't in the scenario, because you see, the frustration is that we don't feel the government is actually listening to the situation. And as you said, they seem to be hanging back there. And this is a very serious situation. I mean, our whole structure, our whole economy is based on fuel. And as we know, tractors don't run on anything else. You have to have fuel. And we're coming into the busy time. Spring has been slow. There's been a frustration with the weather. But look, we can't do anything about that. But the cost of fuel, and it has jumped astronomically. I mean, from February, from about 92 cents, a litre up to 157. And, we got 5 cent back from the government. Sure, I mean, it just frustrated the life out of people.
And that's the point that some of them have made. Can you understand that, the argument that why should the government meet with some of these protesters, whether they have appointed 4 representatives or not, that I've heard them say, well, if some of the official organisations that are dealing with the government, the outcomes haven't been fruitful, that the cut on green diesel, the 3 cent, was negligible compared to how much it's going up. Would you accept that those who would feel that the IFA isn't getting as much out of the government as perhaps they would have hoped?
Well, sure. I suppose, look, I mean, anyone that would look at it say absolutely. And I mean, we're talking about talks, but we have to get actually action. And I mean, that's the frustration that's out there in the roads. And you ask me, do I sympathise? Absolutely. Because contractors, I mean, the sheer cost is going to be put down on them is astronomical. And I mean, who is to pay for that? It goes back to the farmers. We see the price of milk is back down. The price of beef is coming back down. And yet, we're price takers. So it means, you're just worse off. You're working harder and you're worse off. And that's a frustration. And, we're not being listened to. And I mean, there's no point saying that we are, because, we had the debate over the Mercosur. I mean, we got the 2 fingers there. And, yet they think that, we as farmers, in terms of, family farms, and we can compete with these astronomical, feedlots from Brazil. But it just makes the point that we're not being listened to, and this is a serious situation.
Yeah, I guess we get the grievances or the issues you have with the government, but I'm just trying to get a sense from you, Stephen. Are you saying, like, obviously the government should continue to talk to the IFA, but you support the protests? Should the government also be speaking to some of these protesters as well as yourselves? Does that delegitimise yourselves?
Look, you could argue it both ways. I mean, we have an organisation, we have a structure, but at the same time, there has to be a sense of being listened to. There has to be a sense of the reality that's there, that this is a serious situation that needs to get sorted out. And you might say, well, sure, look, it's out of our control. It's Middle East, or it's oil. But surely somebody within the structure must have studied this and said, well, actually, this is a situation that should be catered for or understood, that we don't find ourselves in this scenario.
Okay, I want to come back to you on this and find out at what point would you draw the line on these protests. I'll come back to Eugene and just read out some messages first, because one here saying in 086 1800 964, Junction 13 is blocked both sides. I fully support the demonstrations, but blocking motorway junctions is very dangerous, says that listener. And I guess, Eugene, that raises the point of where you draw the line between legitimate protest and unacceptable disruption. And, the points I was making to Don earlier on, that how will support wane from the public the longer this goes on, and also the argument that it's impacting on people who are already suffering. If there's 2 fellas standing in front of me and the guy on the right punches me in the face, punching the guy on the left in the face to get back at the guy on the right doesn't seem like it seems like a bit crazy.
It doesn't solve the problem. I want to come back to the diesel and the farmers in a moment, but I'll answer your question. It is now, as I said at the start, gone to a blockage, and I've had phone calls from people Monday, Tuesday, even though we didn't put in or out this protest. It is our issue. We absolutely know what they're talking about, but we're not party to it, and we didn't ask for this. But people have been blocked going for their appointments to hospitals. I've had desperate phone calls, and everybody in this county and every county of Ireland has been touched by cancer, and people not getting in for their treatments.
And we've received messages, including one from somebody who had a loved one who was passing away. And do you think that then the Defence Forces being called in is an appropriate response, Eugene, given the fuel depots that are being blocked, motorways being blocked?
Well, again, perhaps if action had been taken a little bit earlier in the week, we wouldn't need the Defence Forces, but we are where we are. And the supply chain, the Port of Defiance has been blocked now for 3 days. Farmers can't get their feed stuff. They've blocked themselves, and now we've an animal welfare issue, especially for the piggery people. So, and the people blocking the port are mainly tractors.
Okay, I'm unfortunately time very much against me, so I just want to get a sense from both of you as to where we go next. Stephen, we know I mentioned Timmy Dooley and Martin Hayden meeting with reps from contracting and agricultural organisations on Friday, but are you hopeful? Are you confident that you will get more out of the government that might satisfy not just yourselves, but also these protesters? Because the government has said they'll reassess the situation at the end of May. We're in the middle of April. Are they gonna pull the cord sooner than you think, or how do you think this is going to play out?
Well, I suppose, look, we have, from an IFA, we have a plan. We want to see the suspension of the carbon tax. That's worth 17.2 cents on every litre of green diesel. It's unfair on farmers because there is no other option. We want to see a temporary fuel support scheme. That's basically the same as the temporary business energy support scheme that was there. And it provides a support payment, basically to cover the cost of between what the increases between what was previously in 2025 to 2026. It's a temporary basis, but it at least it will keep people going. We want to see, again, an expansion of the farm carbon tax, to enable agricultural contractors to qualify and to simplify it, to encourage more to be able to take up that relief. A reintroduction of the fodder scheme, because our biggest issue here is if enough fodder doesn't get cut, and we know increased prices should that you cut a bit less, but that can cause it all. We want to be 150 per hectare, so on that one. Okay, so
you're looking for, sorry, unfortunately time very much against us, Stephen. You're looking for quite a bit there. Just to briefly finish with you, Eugene. It's an understandable list there, but it's quite a list, and the carbon tax, it's due to increase. It's hard to see the government rowing back on that. In terms of what you're looking for, you're just going to forge ahead with talks and hope that they will be productive, because are the government going to move on measures before the end of May? Because that's the timeline they had said initially, but as I say, the end of May seems a long way away given what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, but the trigger mechanism, I think, for that caused this for farmers is the cost of green diesel. It has never been hit before, and he's right in that the different strata that come into carbon tax and the compound nature of carbon tax has caused a lot of issues. We presented a paper to government yesterday, and our fear is that if the fuel surges again, we need something to kick in. Now, we've presented a paper pro-rata to the litres and the price. That can be converted to green diesel as well. I think that we'll get on reasonably well on Friday.
Okay, you think
the wish is there for it.
Okay.
And that would be a big help.
Okay, unfortunately do have to leave there, but my thanks to you, Eugene Drennan, Deputy Vice President of the Irish Road Haulage Association, for calling in, and also to Stephen Walsh, the Clare IFA Chair.